few years ago, sure? Yeah? A few years ago, I read this newspaper article. It really bothered me. It described a new law that had just been passed in Nebraska. It's called a safe haven law. It was the last state to adopt a safe haven law. All the other states in America have one. And the idea of these safe haven laws is that they're going to help prevent dumpster babies, the term dumpster baby. And by giving parents of an infant child the opportunity, if they're feeling so overwhelmed that they're afraid they're going to harm the baby, to come to a firehouse or a police station or a hospital and just hand the baby over. No questions asked, no paperwork to sign. And Nebraska, in the process of adopting this, forgot to put an age limit on it. And in the other states, you had like up to 2 weeks of age, or 2 months, or 6 months, and in some places a year. But what started to happen in Nebraska was that people were bringing in like 9-year-olds and 11-year-olds, and especially 13-year-olds. But the problem was this was really serious, right? And so, because I'm a journalist, and maybe especially because I've been a journalist for a long time, this month is actually 25 years for me working as a journalist. Makes me feel old thinking about it. Because I have been doing it for so long, my impulse when I read something like that is basically just to get on a plane. I thought, well, this is crazy. This is just bad in every way, and I want to call attention to it. So I decided to fly out, and I assumed that the story that I was going to tell was going to be something along the lines of who wrote this law so poorly and didn't look at like any of the other state laws with their age limits, but also what in the world possesses a parent to do something so irresponsible? Because certainly plenty of people may have a reason that they need to give up custody of a child of any age. All sorts of reasons you can imagine. But dropping the kid off at the police station one afternoon and not telling anybody who you are or why or signing anything, just taking off, struck me as totally inexcusable. And so I wanted to write about it and call as much attention to it as I could. And I jumped on the plane and I got off in Nebraska and I went to the State House and I started attending some legislative sessions where they were trying to implement an age limit on this law. And I ended up in the office of this guy, Ernie Chambers, who was like 7,000 years old. He'd been in the state legislature for most of that time. He had been this great activist in the 60s and was coming to the end. The rest of the legislature so resented his activist efforts that they had implemented a term limit, which he was way, way beyond. So he was coming to the end of his time in the state legislature, and his office was filled with all these boxes and like everything that he was kind of pulling out from the drawers. He was extraordinarily disorganized to begin with, and it was this kind of wild environment. And we just sat and talked, and finally he said, I think you need to actually talk to some of these parents. Like some of these parents have contacted me as this has gotten into the news, and I know who they are, and I can put you in touch with them, and you can meet with them. And so I started to meet with some of these parents, and I'll tell you about one of them. Her name was Lavinia Coover. And she lived in this little bungalow sort of house, very rundown, sort of ramshackle, way out in the middle of nowhere by the edge of a river. And I went there one morning for maybe an hour or two interview I was expecting. And sat in the kitchen with her, and then we moved into the living room as it turned into afternoon. And then I came back the next day, and then the next day. So I spent a few days with her, trying to understand what had happened with her when she dropped her 9-year-old son, Skylar, off at a hospital. And he was screaming, "Please don't leave me." And I wanted to understand what had happened. And as I was talking to Lavinia, she was stroking this cat. It was in terrible shape. And its whole body was wrecked. And it turned out that one of the things Skylar would do is fly into these rages. And this had been going on for years. He'd tear the wallboard off the walls. He'd attack his mom. And he would rip the balusters off of the back deck so that there might be like a nail or a screw attached to it. And he would use that to beat the cat. And years of this had been going on. And Lavinia had taken him to the hospitals. She had used every social services program she could find. Her insurance had dropped out on her. The school systems had thrown him out. They had moved somewhere else before this house. She had lost her job from all the days she had to be with him. She was often hurt badly by this big 9-year-old in the process of trying to restrain him and keep him from hurting himself in the middle of these episodes. And finally, a couple of weeks before I started spending time with her, she had dropped him off at the hospital where he was being taken in as an inpatient and treated and being cared for. And she had had to give up her parental rights in order to try to save her kid. And what I realized from that I try to remember all the time as I work as a reporter now, is that when you show up and you parachute into these places and you're trying to write about people, your job is not to know the answers or find the answers or presuppose the answers and think that you know what the story is before you get there. Your job is to be willing to hear the truth when you get there. Thank you.